Welcome to Chapter Shift, the podcast, where great books become simple ideas you can use in everyday life.
Absolutely.
Today, we are opening up a book that completely flips everything we were taught about money right on its head. We're taking a deep dive into Rich Dad, Poor Dad by Robert T. Kiyosaki.
Such a classic.
It really is. And, if you have ever felt stuck in the daily grind, just constantly waiting for the next paycheck to keep your head above water, well, this deep dive offers a very practical blueprint to escape that cycle.
No, it really is a foundational text. I mean, our mission today is to extract the absolute simplest, most powerful lessons from the two dads in this book.
Right, the two dads.
Exactly, so you can start applying them to your own finances immediately. We are skipping the complex accounting jargon and focusing on a fundamental shift in how you view every single dollar that passes through your hands.
I love that. And to kick things off, consider this. How did a pile of discarded, melted-down toothpaste tubes teach a 9-year-old the ultimate secret of the wealthy? Stick around to find out.
It's a great story.
It really is. But to really grasp this entire philosophy, we first need to meet the two vastly different fathers who shaped the author's worldview, right?
Yeah, so the author, Robert, he grew up with two very strong father figures who offered wildly conflicting advice.
Like polar opposites.
Totally. His biological dad, who he calls his poor dad, was incredibly well educated. I mean, we're talking about a PhD here.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, someone who finished 4 years of undergrad in less than 2 years. He went to Stanford, Northwestern, just an impeccable academic pedigree.
It sounds like he did everything right.
On paper, sure. He held a high-level government job and prioritized job security. A steady paycheck, good benefits above all else.
Makes sense.
But yet, despite this really high income, he struggled financially his entire life, just always burdened by debt.
So then you contrast that with his best friend Mike's dad, right? The rich dad.
Right, completely different guy.
This man actually dropped out of school in the 8th grade. He possessed zero academic pedigree. But despite that, he went on to become one of the wealthiest men in Hawaii.
Yeah, he built this massive empire of, convenience stores, restaurants, construction companies.
It's crazy. You can just imagine the cognitive dissonance for a 9-year-old kid receiving totally opposite blueprints for life from these two guys.
Oh, absolutely. But a most striking difference between these two men wasn't the size of their bank accounts at the time.
What was it?
It was their mindsets. Specifically, it was the actual vocabulary they used when talking about money.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah. When faced with something he wanted to buy but couldn't afford, the poor dad would just simply state, "I can't afford it."
Just a hard stop.
Exactly. And what's fascinating here is the psychological mechanism triggered by those 4 words. Rich Dad absolutely forbade the phrase, "I can't afford it," in his house.
Really? Just banned it.
Banned it. He insisted the boys instead ask, "How can I afford it?"
Huh.
On the surface, it seems like a subtle semantic shift, right? Just playing with words. But the underlying logic is profound. When you say, "I can't afford it," your brain essentially shuts down.
It just clocks out.
Exactly. It accepts the statement as a final, immovable reality. You've basically given your brain permission to just go to sleep for the day.
It just gives up. You encounter a roadblock, and instead of figuring out how to climb over it, you just, set up camp and live there.
Yes. Whereas asking, "How can I afford it?" is like throwing a bucket of ice water on your subconscious.
Ooh, I like that.
You are forcing your mind to hunt for a solution. One statement lets you off the hook, but the other forces you to think, strategize, and calculate. Rich Dad believed that mental laziness decreases your wealth just as much as physical laziness decreases your health.
It's funny. We all promise ourselves we'll start eating healthy on Monday. Poor Monday. It gets blamed for everything.
It really does.
But saying, "I can't afford it" is just like blaming Monday. It's a lazy excuse to avoid doing the hard work of changing your habits.
It is totally the path of least resistance. And taking the path of least resistance financially is exactly how people end up broke.
Okay, let's unpack this. Wait, is the author saying education is bad? Because most of us listening were definitely raised on the get good grades for a safe job mantra. My parents said it. My teachers said it. Are we supposed to tell our kids to just drop out in the 8th grade to become millionaires?
I get that a lot, but no.
Yeah.
Both dads actually heavily prioritize education, but they valued fundamentally different kinds of education.
Okay, clarify that.
The book isn't suggesting academic or professional training is worthless. I mean, society desperately needs skilled doctors, accountants, engineers.
Right. Please don't drop out of med school.
Right. The issue is that scholastic and professional skills are entirely incomplete without financial education. Poor dad believed traditional education was the finish line. Get the degree, land the secure job, and you were shielded from the world.
Check the box and you're safe.
Exactly. But Rich Dad understood that if you don't know how money actually functions in the real world, all the academic degrees on earth won't save you from financial ruin.
So, if you are listening to this right now and wondering how to start shifting that mindset, challenge yourself this week. Catch the phrase, "I can't afford it," before it fully leaves your mouth.
That's a great exercise.
Yeah, the second you feel it coming, just swap it to, "How can I afford it?" Just see what kind of creative solutions your brain starts generating.
You'll be surprised.
But a mindset shift is only step one. How did a guy with an 8th grade education actually teach high-level financial literacy to a couple of 9-year-olds?
Well, he certainly didn't sit them down at a desk with a textbook. He used the real world.
Which brings us back to those toothpaste tubes. Because Robert and his friend Mike actually tried to apply this "how can I afford it" mindset on their own first.
They really went for it.
They did. They collected hundreds of discarded lead toothpaste tubes from the neighborhood, melted them down in a pot, and used plaster of Paris molds to literally counterfeit lead nickels. They were creating their own money.
I mean, you have to admire the hustle. Rich Dad caught them and had to gently explain that counterfeiting is a federal crime.
Minor detail.
Right. But rather than just punishing them, he recognized their initiative. They were trying to manufacture wealth. So he offered them a legal alternative, a real-world lesson, working in one of his dusty, non-air-conditioned convenience stores.
He offered them 10 cents an hour to dust canned goods for 3 hours every Saturday morning. And even in 1956, 10 cents an hour was absolute peanuts.
It is nothing.
After a few weeks of missing out on Saturday morning baseball games, choking on dust, and barely making enough to buy a comic book, Robert was completely fed up.
Understandable.
Yeah, he felt exploited by this supposed rich mentor, so he marched into Rich Dad's office, demanding a raise, fully prepared to quit.
And if we connect this to the bigger picture, Rich Dad was orchestrating this exact reaction.
He wanted him to get mad.
He did. When Robert complained that he was being used as cheap labor and wasn't learning the secrets of wealth, Rich Dad explained that life doesn't teach you by giving neat little lectures. Life teaches you by pushing you around.
Man, isn't that the truth?
Every push, every frustration, every unpaid bill is life saying, wake up, there's something you need to learn here.
So instead of giving the kid a raise to 30 cents an hour, Rich Dad did the unthinkable. He told the boys they now had to work for free. 0 cents an hour. Just keep dusting the cans.
The logic here is brilliant in its harshness, honestly. As long as those boys were receiving a paycheck, even a measly 10 cents, their brains were wired to the wage.
They were expecting the payout.
Exactly. They were being conditioned to trade their time for a fixed amount of money. By completely removing the pay, Rich Dad was forcing them through a painful withdrawal. He was breaking their addiction to a steady wage.
Wow.
He promised them that if they worked for free, their minds would eventually open up and show them opportunities to make money that were sitting right in front of them. Opportunities that the average person misses because they're wearing blinders, laser-focused only on getting a safe paycheck.
And the wild thing is, it actually worked. Because they were lingering around the store working for free, they noticed the store manager throwing away the old comic books when the distributor arrived with the new ones.
Just tossing them out.
Yeah, the distributor would tear the top half of the cover off for a credit and toss the rest. The boys asked if they could keep the discarded comics. The distributor agreed with the strict condition that they couldn't resell them.
So they didn't resell them. They gathered hundreds of these comics, cleaned out a spare room in Mike's basement, and opened a comic book library.
So smart.
They charged the neighborhood kids 10 cents admission. For 2 hours, a kid could sit in that basement and read as many comic books as they wanted. It was a massive value for the neighborhood kids and a pure profit center for Robert and Mike.
They even hired Mike's younger sister to be the librarian, paying her $1 a week to manage the door and keep order. They ended up clearing something like $9.50 a week.
Which was huge back then.
Yeah. Huge. They built a self-sustaining system. And that reveals the core philosophy of this entire deep dive. The poor and middle class work for money. The rich have money work for them.
That is the whole secret right there.
Working for a paycheck just to alleviate your immediate financial anxiety is exactly like taking a painkiller for a broken arm. It completely numbs the pain today. You feel fine for a few hours, but you wake up tomorrow morning and the bone is still fundamentally broken.
That is a perfect analogy. The paicheck is just a short-term chemical fix to a long-term structural problem.
Right.
The fear of not paying your bills gets you out of bed and into the office, and then the desire for the fun things money can buy keeps you on the treadmill. Rich Dad calling this the rat race.
The rat race.
Yeah. And the only viable escape route is to build systems or acquire assets that generate income independently of your physical labor.
So take a hard look at your own income this week. Is it 100% tied to the physical hours you sit at a desk or stand on a floor? If you stop moving, does the money stop flowing?
For most people, it's a terrifying yes.
Right, so start brainstorming ways to build a small system or acquire an asset that generates cash while you are sleeping.
But then the question is, what does a grown-up system actually look like?
Exactly.
If we aren't supposed to be running basement comic book libraries for the rest of our lives, what are we physically supposed to be buying with our cash?
This brings us to the golden rule. And the beauty of this book is that it strips away all the intimidating financial jargon. You don't need a degree in accounting to understand this. It breaks down the difference between an asset and a liability using sixth-grade logic.
Yes, forget the complicated, paragraph-long dictionary definitions. Rich Dad defines these terms purely by their function and how cash flows.
Keep it simple.
An asset is simply something that puts money in your pocket. A liability is something that takes money out of your pocket. End of story.
The rich buy assets. The poor only have daily living expenses. But the middle class buys liabilities that they falsely think are assets.
And this specific point is where the author gets highly controversial, particularly regarding the primary residence.
Oh boy, yeah.
We are all heavily conditioned by society and by banks to believe that our house is our biggest investment and our greatest asset. But Rich Dad forces us to look at the raw cash flow.
Where is the money moving?
Exactly. A large, expensive house takes money out of your pocket every single month without fail. You have the mortgage payment, property taxes, homeowner's insurance, inevitable maintenance, the water heater breaking, the roof leaking.
It never ends.
By the strict functional definition, a primary residence is a massive liability.
And people get incredibly defensive about this. But it makes total sense because money is relentlessly leaving your pocket, not entering it. And this misunderstanding is the very engine of the rat race.
How so?
Well, picture this. Someone gets a nice promotion at work, more money. What is the very first thing they do? They upgrade their lifestyle. They buy a bigger house or finance a luxury car to reward their self.
Which instantly leads to higher property taxes, a larger mortgage, increased insurance premiums, and more consumer debt.
Exactly.
Their expenses rise in exact lockstep with their new income. They are making more money than ever, but they have to work twice as hard just to keep up with the payments on the liabilities they mistakenly believe are assets. They never actually build wealth.
You know, sometimes we buy things on sale just to save money. We tell ourselves, I save 40% on this TV.
Yo, I've been there.
Somehow our wallet never agrees with that brilliant strategy when the credit card bill arrives the next month. We justify these lifestyle upgrades because we simply don't understand how cash actually flows.
We trick ourselves.
And here's where it gets really interesting. The banking industry actively encourages this delusion. Have you ever filled out a loan application? The bank allows you to list your new car, your golf clubs, or an Armani suit in your asset column to artificially boost your net worth on paper.
Even though a brand new car loses 25% of its value, the absolute second the tires hit the street outside the dealership.
Yeah. Exactly. So this raises an important question, right? Why on earth would a highly regulated bank allow you to claim a depreciating liability as an asset?
Because to the bank, your mortgage and your car loan are assets, but they're the bank's assets, not yours.
Oh, man.
Those loans put money into the bank's pocket every month in the form of interest, and they take it out of yours. The entire consumer banking system relies heavily on the middle class failing to grasp this fundamental difference.
So do yourself a huge favor tonight. Grab a blank piece of paper and physically draw out your own cash flow pattern. Draw one box for income, one for expenses, one for assets, and one for liabilities. Map where every dollar of your paycheck is actually going.
It's an eye-opening exercise.
It really is. If you want to escape the rat race, you have to stop digging the debt hole and start diverting your cash into real assets. We're talking about dividend-paying stocks, bonds, income-generating real estate, or intellectual property. Things that aggressively push money into your income box while you're on vacation.
Okay, but let's assume you execute on this perfectly. You keep your expenses low, you buy income-generating assets, and money starts flowing in.
Living the dream.
Right. But there is a massive, invisible trap waiting to take a huge chunk of that hard-earned wealth before you can even use it. Taxes.
Whew, the tax man. The history of taxes is honestly wild. We assume it has always been this way, but it hasn't.
Not at all. In America and England, there originally were no permanent income taxes. They were only levied temporarily to fund major wars.
Interesting.
But eventually, governments recognized the power of a permanent, recurring revenue stream. To convince the voting public to agree to a permanent income tax, it was packaged and sold using the Robin Hood myth.
Take from the greedy rich capitalists and give to the hardworking poor. The masses overwhelmingly voted for it because they believed it was designed solely to punish the wealthy elite.
But the underlying mechanism of any government bureaucracy is that it is essentially rewarded for being inefficient. The bigger a department gets, and the more budget it consumes, the more power it wields. As the government's appetite for money expanded massively, the tax net had to be cast wider.
Down the ladder it goes.
Exactly. Ultimately, the heavy tax burden trickled right down onto the middle class and the poor, the exact demographic who originally voted into law.
But the rich didn't just sit there and hand over their fortunes. They utilized a legal escape route that was already built into the system, which is the corporation.
Yeah, and to understand the power of the corporate shield, you have to look at the mathematical difference in how cash flows for an employee versus a corporation.
It's a huge difference.
For a standard W-2 employee, the cash flow formula is brutal. You earn, the government immediately taxes those earnings, and you are left to try and live your life on whatever meager amount is left over. The government takes its cut right off the top before the money ever hits your checking account.
But for a corporation, the formula is entirely flipped.
The rich earn. They spend every dollar they possibly can on legitimate business expenses pre-tax, and then they only get taxed on whatever small amount happens to be left over.
So what does this all mean? Let's break this down with a real-world example so we can see the actual math.
Okay, let's say you need to buy a $1,000 laptop. As a standard employee, to get $1,000 of spending power, you actually have to earn about $1,400.
Because of the taxes.
Right. The government takes $400 in taxes right off your paycheck, leaving you the $1,000 to go buy the computer. But a business owner earns $1,000, buys the exact same laptop as a pre-tax business expense, and the government only taxes what is left in the account, which is zero.
Wow.
They get the identical laptop, but they didn't have to earn that extra $400 just to feed the tax man.
So when we hear the word corporation, we instantly visualize a towering glass skyscraper in Manhattan with a glowing logo and a board of directors. But in the context of personal wealth building, a corporation is just a legal file folder sitting in an attorney's filing cabinet, right?
That's literally all it is.
It is a legal document that creates a body without a soul. It serves as a shield that wraps around your assets, allowing you to utilize pre-tax dollars to grow your wealth exponentially faster. It's the financial equivalent of flying in an airplane while everyone else is walking.
And it is entirely legal. The rules are written right out in the open.
Which means you should seriously explore this. Could starting a small side business or an LLC help you legally shield your income? Could you legitimately utilize pre-tax dollars for your business expenses?
Worth asking.
You absolutely must consult a licensed tax professional, obviously, but the goal here is to start thinking like the rich rather than just passively accepting the punishing employee tax formula as your only option in life.
And so the legal structure is sitting right there in an attorney's office, fully available to anyone willing to set it up. But most people never utilize it.
Why not?
Because of a much more personal internal roadblock. Even if you memorize the difference between assets and liabilities, human nature often paralyzes you from taking action.
We are talking about laziness, but not the stereotypical laziness where you lay on the couch eating potato chips and watching TV all weekend. It is a much more insidious, socially acceptable kind of laziness.
It is laziness disguised as being busy. People constantly say, I'm just too busy at work, or I'm too busy taking care of the kids to sit down and review my finances.
I hear that all the time.
They pack their schedules full as a subconscious mechanism to avoid facing something they're terrified of. Deep down, they know their financial house is crumbling, but the emotional effort required to fix it is overwhelming. So they just stay busy running endlessly on the rat race treadmill.
To break this cycle, the book pulls a concept straight from another classic, The Richest Man in Babylon. Paying yourself first.
Yeah. When the average person receives their paycheck, they pay everyone else in the world first. They pay the mortgage company, the credit card companies, the utility providers, the auto lender.
Everyone gets a cut.
And then, if by some miracle there was a few dollars left over at the end of the month, they might save or invest it. They effectively pay themselves last.
But the wealthy execute the exact opposite strategy. They aggressively push money into their asset column first before they pay a single external bill.
Yes.
Wait, I have to push back on this. If I take my paycheck, funnel a massive chunk of it into index funds or real estate right off the top, and then realize I don't have enough cash left over in check-in to pay my mortgage or my credit card bill, aren't my creditors going to come after me? Won't that ruin my credit score and cause massive anxiety?
It will cause anxiety, and that is precisely the psychological mechanism you're trying to hack.
Really?
The book is not advocating for you to be financially reckless and default on your debts. But by forcing your money into your asset column first, you artificially engineer a cash crunch for your living expenses. You are backed into a corner. Now ask yourself, whose screaming is going to motivate you more? Your own quiet internal desire to save a few bucks, or an angry bill collector threatening your lifestyle?
Oh, the bill collector, hands down. That is raw, primal panic.
Exactly. The fear of the bill collector is a powerful primal motivator. Usually that fear keeps people trapped in a dead-end job. But by paying yourself first, you are artificially harnessing that primal fear and pointing it directly toward wealth generation.
It lights a fire under you.
The sheer panic of needing to cover the electric bill forces you to use your financial genius. You have to go find new, creative ways to generate extra income quickly. It forces you completely out of your comfort zone.
Mental weightlifting.
Yes.
Yeah.
Every single time you hustle to generate the extra cash to appease your creditors, you become financially sharper and more resilient. If you pay yourself last, you feel no pressure, you never have to innovate, and you ultimately end up broke.
This is something you can implement on your very next payday. Call your bank or log in online and set up an automatic transfer. The exact morning your paycheck hits, automatically route a fixed percentage straight into an investment account that you cannot easily touch. Treat your own asset column like it is the most aggressive, unforgiving bill collector in your life.
It's brilliant.
Force yourself to adapt to the pressure of living on what is left over.
It requires immense mental fortitude, but it is the singular habit that ensures your wealth actually compounds over time.
So as we wrap up this deep dive, let's distill the biggest takeaways. Remember that the wealthy refuse to trade their time for money. Instead, they build systems to make money work for them. You must understand the ruthless functional difference between an asset and a liability. Only buy things that deposit cash into your pocket.
That's the core of it.
And finally, overcome the trap of lazy busyness by harnessing your own financial pressure, always paying yourself first to build an unshakable foundation.
Master those 3 principles, and the door out of the rat race finally swings open.
I want to leave you with this final provocative thought to mull over as you go about your day. Money is ultimately just an illusion. It is nothing more than an idea, a collective agreement. Every single dollar that enters your hand represents a choice. You are deciding in that exact fleeting moment whether to be rich, poor, or middle class by how you direct that dollar. The power isn't with your boss or the economy or the bank. The power is entirely in your hands. Thank you for spending a few minutes with Chapter Shift. If today's episode helped you, share it with someone who loves learning. Don't forget to follow or subscribe to Chapter Shift, where every great book becomes practical wisdom. See you in the next chapter.